Hello, welcome to Learning Literature with Jana. Today I am going to discuss one of the famous period in the history of English literature, that is the Restoration Age, which is also known as the age of John Dryden. So in today's video, I would like to discuss the historical and political events of the period, some of the literary works, particularly Restoration Comedy of Manners, Restoration Tragedy, prose, diary writings, poetry, satires, and most importantly, its major writer, John Dryden, and his contribution to the development of English literature. Historical and political details. Restoration Age is the time period when Charles II was restored to the throne of England and monarchy was re-established in the country. After the English Civil War and before the Restoration period, there was the Commonwealth period, which was ruled by Oliver Cromwell. But with the execution of Charles I, his son Charles II was defeated by Cromwell, and Charles II, out of fear, fled to France. The monarchy, Anglican Church, and Parliament were re-established. Many Puritan laws were also corrected. In 1658, when Oliver Cromwell died, his son Richard was very weak, but he became the Lord Protector of England. He lacked his father's skills. As a result, Charles II came back to England from France and defeated Richard Cromwell easily. So, Charles II was finally restored to the throne of England. So in the restoration period, many political events took place, like the inauguration of the Clarendon Code, which is a series of laws aimed at suppressing those supporting non-Anglican religious groups like dissenters, Puritans, and Catholics. This period reinforced the Church of England as the state religion. In the Restoration Age, theatre ban was lifted, Royal Society was established to promote rational inquiry, research, and development of science. In the same Restoration Age, Great Plague of London occurred that killed around 1 lakh people, and the Great Fire of London devastated the whole country, including destroying St. Paul's Cathedral and thousands of homes. In the period, England got involved with fighting with the Dutch for the control of trade routes and colonies all over the world. One of the major political events was the Poppy's plot, which was a fabricated conspiracy that planned to assassinate Charles II and place his Catholic brother James II to the throne of England. James was a papist, a Roman Catholic, so people turned against him within 3 years, and this led to anti-Catholic hysteria and executions. The exclusion crisis was a political movement to dethrone Charles II from the throne of England. It led to the formation of party-based politics in England, the starting or beginning of two parties, Whig and Tory. Whigs were the supporters of strong parliamentary supremacy, but they opposed absolute monarchy. They supported constitutional monarchy and the power of the parliament. They favored religious tolerance for Protestant religious people, but they were hostile to Catholics. They opposed the succession of James II because he was a Roman Catholic. The notable figures of Whig Party were Sir Anthony Ashley Cooper, who was also known as the Earl of Shaftesbury. There is a reference of the Earl of Shaftesbury in one of the political satires, Absalom and Achitophel by John Dryden. John Locke was also a Whig supporter, who was a philosopher in the Restoration period. Other supporters are the merchants, the elite class, the religious dissenters, and those favoring commercial elites. Tory supporters were supporting the royalists, the king, and the Church of England. They supported the divine right of kings and its hereditary succession. They opposed religious dissent and sought to maintain Anglican dominance. They always favored the rule of James II, who was a pure Catholic. Some other supporters are Lord Denbigh, Samuel Johnson, landed aristocratic people, clergy of the Church of England, rural people, and conservative people. The political context of the Restoration Age was the Whig and Tory party became rival to each other when Whigs tried to dethrone Charles, sorry, James II from the succession because of his Catholic mentality. After James II became king in 1685, his pro-Catholic biasness led to the Glorious Revolution in 1688. The revolution resulted in James II's dethronement and the ascendancy of William III and Mary II to the throne of England, who reinforced the power of the parliament. So, Glorious Revolution was one of the famous political movements where James II was dethroned because of his Catholic biasness. In 1688, the Protestant leaders invited William of Orange, who was married to James' Protestant daughter Mary, to invade England. James II, out of fear, fled to France, and as a consequence, William and Mary were declared joint monarchs in 1689. Some of the result of the Glorious Revolution were the permanent end of absolute monarchy in England, the introduction of the Bill of Rights, the rise of parliamentary sovereignty, and there was the Act of Toleration and the formation of modern political parties like the Whigs, who supported William III and the power of the parliament, and the Tories, who were always loyal to James II, but finally accepted William as their king. They, there was another impact of Glorious Revolution all over Europe and particularly on France. France's Louis XIV, who supported James II, faced a stronger England, leading to wars between France and England. French influence was strong during the Restoration period. The Restoration age was heavily influenced by French culture, politics, and literature. Because Charles II admired Louis XIV's absolute monarchy, James II's pro-French policies openly supported Catholic France, which contributed to his downfall in the Glorious Revolution. Culturally, England was greatly influenced by French court manners, table manners, French cooking style. Hmm. And literary influence was also vast because many heroic dramas written in England were influenced by the French writers. Dryden adopted Jean Racine and Pierre Corneille's elevated style. Many female actresses started performing on the stage for the first time in the Restoration England. Comedy of manners, which were originally created in France, became very popular in England, taking its inspiration from one of the famous French writers, Molière. Religious influence was also strong, which I have repeatedly said. Architectural design like Greenwich Palace, which was also created in England, following inspiration from the Palace of Versailles in France. Now let us take a look of the literary events of the Restoration period. Many Restoration comedy of manners were written during the age. Writers like William Wycherley, who wrote The Country Wife and The Plain Dealer, George Ithares wrote The Man of Maud, She Would, If She Could. Afraven wrote The Rover and the Emperor of the Moon. John Vanbrugh wrote The Relapse and the Provoked Wife. The most popular among the Restoration writers was William Congreve, who wrote The Way of the World and Love for Love. Thomas Hadwell was also a comedy writer who wrote The Square of Alsatia and Epsom Wells. So Thomas Shadwell had a rivalry with John Dryden. So John Dryden criticized Thomas Shadwell in his famous personal satire or lampoon called Macflecknoe. Restoration tragedies were also written in the period. In tragedy, French and classical models were combined to produce a new type of play called heroic play. Some of its features are heroic themes and rigid moral codes, use of heroic couplet, influence of neoclassicism, because most of the writers followed Latin and Greek writers as their model for the composition of their writing in England. Political and social concerns, sensationalism, and emotion. Tragedy writers are like John Dryden, who wrote All for Love based on Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, which was written in blank verse. Thomas Otway wrote Venice Preserved. Nathaniel Lee wrote The Rival Queens, and Afra Ben wrote Ab Dilliger. Many diary writers also became popular, whose diaries provide valuable insights into the social, political, and cultural landscape of Restoration England. Samuel Pepys was a popular name, in whose diaries, the Great Plague of London and Great Fire of London get reflected. John Evelyn was also a diary writer who focused on intellectual, environmental, and artistic matters, political events, court life, architecture, and scientific advancements. Other minor diary writers were Narcissus Luttrell, Anthony A. Wood, Roger Morris. Restoration prose writers also became very popular. One Victorian poet and critic, Arnold, commented, Restoration age marks the birth of modern English prose, as it was the age of rationalism and intellectualism. John Dryden wrote an essay of dramatic poesy, eh, where he defended English drama against French and classical influences. Dryden also wrote political and historical prose, including prefaces and critical essays. John Bunyan was a popular name in the Restoration age who wrote The Pilgrim's Progress, grace abounding to the chief of sinners, the holy word. Samuel Pepys, I have mentioned before, Sir William Temple, who wrote essays on ancient and modern learning. John Locke wrote an essay concerning human understanding. And he also wrote two treatises of government. Afra Bain wrote famous prose fiction Urunuku based on the colonialism and slavery system. Roger L. Strange, Gilbert Barnett were also some of the Restoration prose writers. So now let us take a look of John Dryden's contribution to the development of English literature in the Restoration age. John Dryden was an influential English poet, playwright, and literary critic. He wrote many poetry, plays, prose, and he translated many ancient classical works into English. His poetry like Astrea Redux, Annus Mirabilis, Absalom and Achitophel was most popular. Macflecknoe was also a satirical poem because Absalom and Achitophel was a political satire, whereas Macflecknoe is a personal satire addressed uh, Thomas Hadwell as his most poetical rival. The Hind and the Panther also was written by Dryden. Dryden wrote many plays like The Indian Emperor, The Conquest of Grenada, Aurangzeb, All for Love, Marriage a la Mode. He also wrote many prose writings like an essay of dramatic poesy, where he defended English drama against French classical rules and he supported for the cause of rhyme in plays. He also wrote preface to Fables, Ancient and Modern, a significant work of literary criticism discussing translation and poetic form. John Dryden made many translations of ancient classical works. He translated the Latin epic writer Virgil's Aeneid. Hmm. And he also translated Ovid's Metamorphoses into English. So for these contributions, Dryden was popularly known as the father of English criticism because he played a major role in shaping English literature taste during the Restoration period. So friends, this is all about the details of the Restoration period, and thank you for your patient watching. I hope you found this video helpful. If you found this video helpful, please do like and subscribe my channel. I will come back very soon with a new video. Till then, bye bye. Have a good day. Thank you.